مساء الخير and good evening to you all. I will talk tonight in English because I have my friend who doesn't talk Arabic, so we will manage by English, okay? So I have my friend, my dear friend, Mr. Jacob Cohen. He's an activist, he's a Moroccan Jew, French guy, okay? He lives in France. And he's very anxious to tell us about the agreement that was announced yesterday. And I have also another friend who's a Moroccan. He lives also, or he's staying for now in not in Morocco. His name is Yusuf, as you see. So let's start by saying good evening to you, Mr. Jacob. Long time we didn't talk since the last time. Mm-hmm. But apparently things in the Middle East is developing very, very fast, really fast. Yes. Yesterday, Mr. Netanyahu just announced that we came to an agreement, a peace agreement with Morocco. I was really surprised because, you know, that there was some kind of relationship between Morocco and Israel. I was allowed to travel to Morocco and to visit Morocco, and just there was, I think there was a kind of a relation, but it wasn't announced as an agreement. What do you think about this agreement? Is it good to the Moroccan people?
Is it?
Is it good for the Moroccan people?
Is it good? I mean, it can be positive for the regime of Morocco, you know, because let's say since the 60s, Morocco had always, early 60s, I mean, it could be 1961. Morocco had always secret and good relations with the Mossad. The Mossad in Morocco was like at home, you know.
Okay.
In Morocco, it was at home, you know, and there were many agreements, security agreements, military agreements, but they were, let's say, secret. I mean, well, nobody was allowed to talk about that, but it was almost known, you know. I mean, I knew about that. And King Hassan II, was a very didn't like. I mean, he hated Gamal Abdel Nasser. So he wanted the victory of Israel on Egypt, on Gamal Abdel Nasser. So because
really,
yes,
I didn't know that.
You know, I can also tell you that after the defeat of Egypt, Hassan II, he well, in French we say, there is an expression, you know, to open champagne, you know, because if I don't know if you remember, or if you know the history, the Arabic world was really divided in the 60s between the revolutionary and the conservative, and it was like unanimity, but false unanimity. It was just like the Arabs like to talk and say we are together, we fought for Palestine, but they were really enemies. I mean, between the monarchies, Morocco and Saudi Arabia and so on, and the revolutionaries, Gamal Abdel Nasser, Algeria. But they had to play like unity, because people wouldn't understand that. But let's do remember there was a war in Yemen in 65, 64, right?
In the 60s, yes,
But
I remember.
it was a war between Saudi Arabia and Egypt, but on Yemen soil.
On in Yemen,
Yeah.
yes, on Yemen
So
land.
Morocco, it was also the regime in Morocco was always on the American side and looked always for American help. And so in the 80s, King Hassan received, even before the Oslo agreements, received officially Rabin and Perez.
Mm-hmm.
So Morocco played always the card of negotiations, talking, and it was only a question of time that Morocco would come to normalize, I mean, to sign officially and openly an agreement. The people of Morocco
Mm-hmm.
is against this normalization. I mean, a big part of Morocco. But I think the time is good for Morocco for this normalization, because Morocco gets a very good, very high present for this signature. America recognizes that the Sahara is Moroccan, and
Yes, exactly.
Morocco.
They announced it.
Yes, Morocco has waited 45 years for this recognition. So it's a very important diplomatic victory for Morocco, and it's like Al-Quds, when it's recognized by America as Israeli. So it's all on the same level, So for Morocco and the Moroccan people is now in a very bad situation because of the pandemic, COVID, How do you
Yes,
okay.
from the pandemic.
Yeah,
Yes.
because the people in Morocco for many months is obliged to stay at home. The factories are closed. People can't go to the beaches. The people are really restricted. There are really harsh restrictions. So people can't really go out to go to manifest. So it's a good time. I mean, for the regime, it's an opportunity. It's a very good opportunity for Morocco to sign this normalization, and I think it could go like without many protests, and
it could without many protests.
And it's in the balance of power. I used to say for many years now that Israel is on the top. I mean, he leads the world. Israel can do what he wants, militarily, diplomatically.
Despite the law, despite all the
despite what he can do what he wants. So I mean, he achieved because there was. I mean, it was not unexpected. Like people can. The last 10 years, Israel has worked very hard, very profound, to make the monarchies to accept, and people didn't want to see these signs. I talked about.
They already normalized their relationship just through the past years. It's not really. I wasn't surprised by the announcing that there was an agreement. I thought there was already an agreement between Morocco and Israel, because I really know that there's cooperation between Israel and Morocco. Officially not, but they were. Yeah.
But now, I mean, it can go very fast.
Now it's official.
I mean, it's
what do you think? what do you think about the Supreme Court of Justice that say that the Moroccan desert it's not to the Moroccan monarchy? Because we can't just disconnect from the Mauritanian. I think the Mauritanian people there of the desert. I don't really understand the issue between the monarchy and the desert. Can you just explain more to us? Because I think, yeah.
About what? About the Sahara?
Yes, about the Sahara.
Well, to make it short, I am convinced, and I did a video on this subject, that the Sahara was Moroccan. But in 1956, at the independence of Morocco, Morocco could have get back these provinces, and no one in the world would have said a word about that. But Moroccan, the regime, didn't want to get back these territories. Why? Because these territories was conducted by revolutionary Moroccans who wanted a republican regime or a king without much power. So Morocco at that time, in 1958, he did an alliance with France and Spain to crush down this revolutionary and renounce for a while to these territories. And he waited until 1965. 1965, it was too late. There was Saharian people, one. Second,
yes,
Algeria didn't want Morocco to get back these territories. For the Algerians, for Algeria, it was not interesting to get a strong Morocco with new territories. So they helped the Sahrawis to make war. There is no between states. Between states, there is no international law. There is no moral. There is nothing. There is only strength, power, and relation of power. And Algeria doesn't care about Sahrawis, but it's good to say that all the Sahrawis. There was, there was no solution because
could Israel just control this place?
Excuse me.
After the agreement, could Israel just control this Sahara and make it out theirs? Maybe, I don't know.
No, Israel controls already a part of Morocco, which is inhabited by the Berber, by the Amazigh. The Mossad is very present in these regions. Okay, and in Morocco too, in Casablanca, in Rabat, there is a personage in Morocco who is as important as the king is André Azoulay. He is the counselor of the king for the last 40 years. He is a Jew. He is, like I call a Sayan. He is an agent of the Mossad. And he was a banker, international banker, who was sent to Morocco in the 80s.
Who is it? Who is it? Just, I didn't get you. Who is it you're talking? André
Azoulay.
And what is stand for? Where is he? What does he do? I didn't get.
For the last 40 years.
For the last 40 years.
He is the special advisor of the king. So a special advisor of Hassan and of Mohammed VI. And he did all the work to legitimate Israel in Morocco and in the Arab world. And he is very important. A key personage.
Yes,
in Morocco.
It's really important.
So,
I would like to ask you another question.
Yes.
If you just let me, I will listen to my friend Yusuf afterwards. But I want to ask you, as a Jew and as a person who was taught by a Zionist when he was young, do you think Moroccan people, or in general Arab people, can trust Israel? Is Israel really interested to make peace? Do you trust them?
Me, the Zionist. You know the thing. Okay, why I tell always I don't understand how Arabs in general and Palestinians in particular can sign agreements with the Zionists. I mean, one century, 100 years of treason, everything the Zionists did. How could the Arabs and the Palestinians could only think that they can make a fair agreement with the Zionists? They are the devil. Okay, so but the Zionists are very smart. They came with smiling. They come with good heart. Like for instance in Morocco. Okay, the Moroccans don't like Netanyahu. Okay, for instance, and that's real. Okay. So the Zionists tell them, "Oh, you don't like Netanyahu? It's okay. We send you Tzipi Livni." No, Tzipi Livni. She is, and the Moroccans are happy. Oh, Tzipi Livni. She talks about the solution. How? Excuse me, but how Moroccans are naive, are almost stupid. I just tell them, can't you get why Arabs don't study Hebrew and study what they think of the Arabs? Why don't you know that the Rabbi Ovadia Yosef? Why don't you know what he tells about the Arabs? Why they? Golda Meir, Ben Gurion, Moshe Dayan, everybody. How the Arabs are treated. I don't understand. Really, I don't understand why the Arabs.
Me neither. I don't understand them. Really.
I tell the Moroccans, I ask them, why don't you invite Israeli Arabs or Palestinian living in Israel? They would tell you what the Zionists are. So, but well, I'm sorry to say, but the Arabs, is a civilization globally, is under. Is a second degree. That's a fact. I'm sorry because look, for instance, how the Palestinians, Yasser Arafat, has played okay. So the Moroccans naturally, and when you see the Arabs of Abu Dhabi, the Bahrain,
exactly. I think they are. I thought that they are really like a new web.
They run into the trap of the Zionist trap. It's just I want just to laugh because it's so funny.
The same reaction. I was laughing.
There is an expression in French. I would tell Youssef because he can translate you in Arabic. In France we say faire entrer le loup dans la bergerie. Youssef, tu peux traduire ça à Marianne? Faire entrer le loup dans la bergerie.
La bergerie, c'est
La bergerie, c'est là
où il y a les moutons et tout ça. Ouais.
Voilà. Donc, tu fais rentrer le loup.
Oui, يدخل الذئب إلى الحظيرة الأغنام ولا القطيع.
دخول إلى الحظيرة.
I mean, they just open the door to the enemy who is going to eat them.
Exactly. They are just feeding them up in order just to kill them afterwards. Exactly. Okay, so let's say your answer is that we can't trust them, and I'm receiving the most just ridiculous acting in UAE, in Bahrain. They are acting just like two dear friends, and they are not just understanding the intellectual, they are not standing the mind of Zionists. They are just getting through the people and just making them believe that they want really peace. And I really want to ask you about something else. In the last few weeks, some of the YouTubers, the Moroccan YouTubers, just have Israeli guests.
Yes.
Moroccan Israeli, originally from Morocco, and trying to just convince them I don't know, that they are peace seekers, want peace, and they are not willing to go to war, and they are just enough with all the violence and everything. Do you think it's really what's going on? And why Moroccan people and Arab in general believe in this ridiculous claim? Because it's not true.
Well,
if they are really eager to peace, why they don't make peace with their neighbors, with the people just living across the road, with the Palestinians? They are bombing them. It's not. I don't understand them. What do you think about that?
Well, I don't want to say, look, to have some harsh words about Arabs, okay? But I think, well, let's say, in 60 years of independence, okay, they are independent, okay, well, the Arab countries. I mean, they didn't get an evolution. I mean, you know, what did they achieve? Okay, no, I mean on education, for instance, on freedom, on you know, the Arabs have okay, the West, or the West, okay, like France and United States, you know, each time there was a leader, an Arab leader, who was nationalist, who wanted to make his people go forward, they assassinated him. Okay, I mean, Nasser was defeated by Saddam Hussein, Gaddafi. It's true. I mean, the West was happy with King Hassan. King Hassan, in 40 years, he didn't do anything about moving his population for you know, like education, health, and so on, justice.
Exactly. That is what I'm just to ask my friend Yusuf.
The West loves this kind of leaders, you know, corrupt.
Yes, exactly.
Dictators, and so on. Look, well, I say to my countrymen Arabs, okay, I tell them, look, never trust the West. Never. When the West comes with good values, you know, like, oh, democracy and everything, it's bullshit. I give you an example. Okay, Europe, in 2006, Europe said, oh, the Palestinians, we're going to make an election. free election and so on, like with European observers. Okay, because Europe likes election, free elections, but only for them, not for the Arabs. Arabs are, like, okay. But who won? Hamas won. Okay, so it was a free election. And what Europe did? Oh, no, it's impossible.
No, we don't want this.
So
Yes.
I'm sorry to say, but the Arabs are not.
They are ready. They are ready to give you the democracy just in one condition: if this is suit them.
Yeah, what once I wrote about Egypt when because I said there was a coup d'état against Morsi. I don't mean I like Morsi, but I said for the first time in an independent Arab country there was a free election, and
exactly.
Okay, you don't like the religious people. Wait 4 years. But
yes, exactly.
I call it the Facebook youth. Like these people, Facebook and everything. They said they were manipulated by the military, by the West. No, the religious. Okay, and they had the military overthrow Morsi, and now they get a regime worse than Mubarak, because the situation is worse. And I wrote, it's good. It's comment tu traduis? C'est bien fait pour eux. Ils le méritent. C'est bien fait pour eux.
يستحقون.
Deserve. They deserve.
They deserve to be arrested. They deserve to be tortured. They deserve to have a worse dictatorship, because they, well, it's not. Maybe a sociologue can explain why the Arabic societies can't. I have a clue, because I wrote a lot of novels. I write only novels, and in these novels I go back to a very important idea about Arabic societies. They are unable to have a free speech, and if you don't liberate the word, I mean the speech, you can't go far. I mean, even I teach at the university for 10 years. It's not a gadget, like a free speech. What does it mean, a free speech? I mean, a society able to hear everything, to hear the contest of religion, of sex, of family. And the Arabic society has these taboos, and it's a very, even if you write a thesis in the university, I made this example. I heard, you can't say that in a thesis. It's against. I mean, it's against religion. I mean, it's against this and against that. And
they interfere with your freedom to speech. With your freedom of speech.
At the early age, like I remember at the university, people would give you by heart a chapter, but they don't like to express an individual. So there are many reasons why these societies are unable to confront an ideology like Zionism. Zionism is a kind of, military, imperialistic, very, very, very intelligent, very cynical. Like the Nazis, beside
There is a huge difference between Jewish people and Zionist people. I want you to explain what the difference between this and that, because Israeli people nowadays trying to just saying or just pretending to be, we are Jewish people, we are cousins of the Muslim, of the Christian, we are neighbors, we are brothers, and they are playing on the thing of that the religion, and it's not the religion, it's not the religion issue. I don't hate Jew people nor Muslim nor anybody, but Zionist is very different from Jewish people. Can you just explain the difference between the two? You as a Jew, you know the difference.
You know, in Morocco, I was born and I grew up in a mellah. It means a Jewish quarter. Okay, it was like a small town. And when the Zionists came in 1948, they opened
ملاح.
mellah. They opened an I don't know, an office in the mellah, you know. The Jews in Meknes were horrified. Because for them, they were not Jews because they were opened on Shabbat. I mean, it's sacrilege. I mean, the rabbis were very upset. These people were, for them, like weird. I mean, it's what kind of people are these? And when my father came in Israel in '68, my father was a very good Jew, religious, and very naive. In '69, I remember I went the first time in Israel, and I met, and you know what he told me in Arabic, Moroccan Arabic. He said, "You know, Jacob, these people, they are not Jews. In his mind, these people are
in his eyes.
I mean, Jews for my father are people who study, who are honest, who help each other, like. But these kind of people are cynical. I mean,
The opposite. Yes.
The Zionists are a special kind of Jews. The Zionists in the beginning were a few, maybe 30,000, 40,000, 50,000, who came from Russia and Poland. And I use this image to explain what kind of people these were. I say, imagine the Red Army of Trotsky, okay, with 40,000, 50,000, the Red Army of Trotsky, but with the ideology of Zionism. They were atheists. They dislike Jews. Ben Gurion and the Zionists, they hated the Jews of the diaspora. They hated them. They had they despised them because they were weak, because they were like a kind of a new model of the Jew. And until 1948, the ideology of Zionism was never popular among the Jews all over the world. 99% of the religious people were against Zionism. 99%, and the French Jews in France, in England, in Poland, in all over the countries, they never went to Palestine because Zionism was a very weird ideology for them. So it was a new kind of Jew. Jews were not used to this kind of using the strength, the military.
Yeah.
They were always peaceful people living, and they study a lot and everything. But the victory of Zionism, I mean the creation of the state of Israel, and the Holocaust, and the religious people. Now 90% of the religious people are Zionists, or they play, because I have a lot of family in Israel. I mean, all the family. I mean, brothers, sisters, a lot of cousins and everything. And I have really. My brother is a very Orthodox. He is with the movement of Shas.
Mm.
And he is not. He doesn't believe in democracy. What do you think? I mean, the religious people, they just wait
Yes.
until they will be. My
It's
brother
really weird. Yeah.
Look. Now the democracy is in our favor, So we play the game, but
We play it with the democracy in order to get to our interest. Yes.
When we have the majority, we squeeze the people who are not religious. Look, you can see them already. Whenever they get into a town, like Ashdod, for instance. Ashdod, they had no religious until maybe 10 or 15 years. Now they have almost 30%. So they, I mean, the difference between Zionist and Jew of the diaspora is, how can I say? It's not. The Jew in the world is a cosmopolite people, he has not this. The Zionist is racist, he is fascist. He can kill with a good conscience. I mean, because he believes in his ideology, in his destiny. The Zionists have an expression called the purity of arms purity. Do you understand? La pureté des armes.
Yes.
Tu peux lui traduire? La pureté des armes.
Youssef?
Youssef?
نقاء أو طهارة الأسلحة.
نقاء. Okay.
The Zionists believe in, I don't know in Hebrew, I'm sorry, but the purity of arms. What does it mean? It means that when they do anything, I mean, they can kill 100,000 of women, children. They believe that they have good conscience. They are in legitimate defense. They grew. I mean,
they always play the victim. They always play the victim, that they can't do anything in order to get to their. Yes, exactly.
Do you want to hear a story about the mentality of a Zionist? I saw a
Yes,
documentary.
of course, I would like to hear.
A few years ago.
And we want to share. Yeah.
Okay. 6 years ago.
Yes, I would like to.
I saw Israeli documentary. Okay, and like Israelis make good documentaries. They have free speech. They present themselves like we are good men. We are open. We talk. Okay. So the journalist asked a man who was working in a hospital, like psychology or something, who was doing his miluim, army reserve.
Miluim, yes.
Yeah. So
in the military.
Yeah, he was 40 years old. Okay, 40 years old, and he said, I had a very, very bad experience. I mean, it traumatized me. So, Johnny, what happened? So I said, okay, we were in the territories, in the middle of the night, and we pushed a door of house, tack, 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 in the middle of the night, and the people didn't open quickly, so we threw a grenade. Attends, Youssef, je vais avoir besoin de toi. Une grenade assourdissante.
قنبلة.
a bomb that's causing death. A sonic bomb.
Assourdissante.
Mm.
Do you understand?
Sonic
No,
bomb.
not to
Yes,
kill,
yes.
but to make,
makes you
to make
lose
noise. No.
your hearing.
Okay.
Not a grenade to kill, but to make. Okay.
Yes, allowed. Okay.
Okay, but a girl of 5-year-old girl died because of this grenade. Okay, and the man said it was, like I felt, very bad. And the journalist asked him, okay, you felt bad. Did you go to see the family to express
your sorrow? That
sorrow
you are really maybe sorry for that. Yes.
Yeah, sorry for that. And the guy, like was thinking, he thought about 1 minute and he said, what? I mean, it's the Palestinian family who should present excuses to me.
Wow.
And so, how that? And he said, look, this Palestinian family put me in the situation that I came to kill this girl.
Oh my God, this is really funny.
And this is the Zionist mentality. No. You know what Golda Meir once said?
Yes.
We'll never forgive the Palestinians to push us to kill their children.
Push us. Oh my God, that's really.
They think. I mean,
this is the devil talking. It's the devil talking.
So
the devil is talking.
Yes,
exactly.
I
will just ask. Let's hear our friend Yusuf. Let's hear our friend Yusuf. Yusuf,
Sure.
I want to hear from you about the Moroccan people. You are Moroccan. Maybe you just talked with your friends back in Morocco about this agreement. What do they think? Are they relieved? Are they happy with the agreement, or just ashamed that they are just signed this agreement with the Israeli people, with the Israeli government?
Okay, but let me first just say a few words about the difference between being Jewish and being a Zionist.
Okay.
I remember Ghassan Kanafani wrote in one of his books that the early Zionists believed that there will be no state for Jewish if they didn't build or destroy the last Jewish and build the first Zionist or Hebrew, because they understood that Jewish religion, even the text, sacred text, do not comply with what they want to do to establish a state, a racist state. So that's what I wanted to add. About Morocco, as Mr. Cohen said earlier, that the timing of the announcement that Morocco will normalize its diplomatic relationship with Israel was very precise. First of all, they took advantage of Trump as he's leaving office. It's sure that he will leave office. Second of all, it has been done when Morocco just finished, because we don't have many reports there. We don't have journalists in the Western Sahara. The conflict just finished between Morocco and Polisario, the Sahrawi Liberation Front. So the atmosphere in Morocco is very intense. People believe that they are under attack, that Algeria will attack Morocco, and it's using for now Polisario to attack Morocco, and they achieved, or they succeeded in creating an atmosphere, a public atmosphere that feels unsafe, which allows them to believe that the Moroccan regime is the only protector. The regime used this point to justify what the king has announced this time yesterday. So, and during the conflict between the Moroccan, or not the Moroccan, the royal armed forces and Polisario, the Moroccan media, based on racism against Sahrawis, based also on some news that say that Palestinians support Algeria and Sahrawis, they use that to let Moroccan people think that Israel is a good friend and Israel that will help Morocco spread its sovereignty on the Moroccan, or the Western Sahara, and that Palestinians are a part of the problem. So many Moroccans turned their guns from Israel to Palestinians. So the Moroccan media has succeeded to make Palestinians look like a part of problem, not as they are people that's struggling for its autodetermination. That's the situation. So they justified the normalization with Israel, the official normalization with Israel.
So they convinced the Moroccan people that their enemy is the Palestinian, because they are supportive to the Sahrawi.
Palestinian and the Algerian regime and the Algerian. Yes, they had prepared this for at least 2 years. Media say that 2 years. They say that Israel and the United States will recognize as soon as we normalize our relationship with Israel, and that Palestine is very, very far from us. It doesn't concern us. Our priority now is the Moroccan Sahara, and we can even.
What is there in this Sahara? Is there any interest to the Moroccan people? Is it very important to get through the Sahara? What's the importance of getting this Sahara? I don't understand what's there. Is there any thing very important to the Moroccan people or the Moroccan monarchy? I don't understand.
It's a very rich desert. It has I think more than 1,000 kilometers of rich with fish and products in sea, fish, and also mineral resources. So it's very rich. It's very important. But Moroccan, and Mr. Jacob has mentioned that Moroccan, or the monarchy, never let Moroccan people enjoy or live in prosperity. So they know that defending the Western Sahara, the Moroccan sovereignty on Western Sahara, will never benefit for them. But I think it's a psychological issue. You know, Morocco has had many protests, many popular movements. RIF 2016, 2017, the movement of 20 of February 2011, and they all fail. So people, I think, from my point of view, I think that many Moroccans, or the majority of Moroccans, they support the armed force, royal armed force, as if they're supporting a football team. meaning they will choose whatever looks looks strong, and they try to be a part of that strong part, and when that strong part
They will go
wins the war, wins the conflict,
with the strong side.
they feel satisfied, because they
I see.
know that they will never the Sahara will never be a benefit for them, as the mineral resources in the north of Morocco, as all the tourism, as all the economic activity. Moroccan live on a slavery wage. So I think it's a psychological issue, because I'm sure, and I know Moroccans, they know that their goods don't belong to them, but to the palace, to the bourgeoisie that is allied with palace, and for multinational companies in Europe and USA.
Do you think the majority of the Moroccan people are with this peace agreement, or just against this peace agreement? The majority of the people, not the monarchy. We know that the monarchy is a very dear friend with Israel for a long time. What about the youth, the people?
I'm not really sure. I don't know why. We don't have free press, so you will never know what people really think. The good press, independent press, face many troubles. Many of the journalists are in prison. Many of them are boycotted by the companies. They have no financial resources. So, and even once, believe that or not, a journal made a poll about the popularity of the king. It's called Nishan. Tirkel. And they said that the king is popular within more than 90%. And a Moroccan court sentenced that all the printed numbers of this paper should be burned, because they made, even if it's favorable for the king, but they burned all the copies, all the printed copies. So in a state like that, it's hard.
We can't trust the media. Yes, exactly, because we don't know what the people are thinking.
And also people are afraid to express their opinions. Even if someone says that I'm for this, but they're afraid, you never trust them. That's in Morocco we have a saying that says that all walls have ears. All walls have ears, meaning that don't never talk freely. Someone may hear you and report you to the police.
Yes.
And since
there is no freedom of speech, you mean?
Yes, and since 2016, it has the oppression has been accelerated. Many free voices now are in prison. Many journals are closed. So I think that we should look at the political parties. Political parties that are made by the state, by the palace, because to control the game, you have to create parties, political parties. All the parties that are controlled or made by the palace are for whatever the king says. If the king declares war against Israel, they will say yes. If he announced peace, they will say yes. And that is very, very, very funny, because once the king used to talk about the economical model that is adopted in Morocco, and he has always been saying that it's good. Once in a speech, he said that economical model has failed, and all the political parties, official political parties made by Mahsen or
says like
is the same, say the same, just the same. In the last speech, I think it's last year, we always refer to the Agadir region as being the south of Morocco. Always, that's the expression. Agadir, it's the south, and maybe Mr. Jacob will know this. We all say Agadir is the south. Agadir is the south. When the king said that we shall not call Agadir the south because the south is the Western Sahara, they all started to say the same. So they are just like those, or just like a ring in control.
Exactly.
But in Morocco, we still have a non-official opposition, Democrats, some leftists, some liberals even, and some Islamists are against the normalization. And even the left, the radical left, is against what happens in Sahara. It's the radical left is for the right to autodetermination in Western Sahara, in Palestine, and they refuse all types of normalization. About the relationship, and Mr. Jacob has talked about this earlier, and he was right. It started in the early 60s. Then the king has made a deal with Israel to, between brackets, to export most of Moroccan Jews to Israel through Europe. I'm not very specialized in history, but I'm a biology student. But many reports and many testimonies say that they were sold. For each individual, for each Moroccan Jew, there was a price.
Can you tell us more, Mr. Jacob, about this?
The king, you know, when I was, I remember I studied law in Casablanca, okay, between 64 and 67. And I remember we used to say in Arabic, Hassan Qra, Ba'alihud Bizra. Did you understand?
Hassan
Qra has no hair.
Ba'alihud Bizra.
حسن الأصلع باع اليهود بالزرع. حسن الأقرع باع اليهود بالزرع.
The king received for each Jew who left Morocco, he received a certain amount in Switzerland, and his brother Abdullah received for each Jew who went to the harbor to go to Israel. He received. You know, the Jews, how they left. In 61, the Mossad make a boat sink, you know, like called Egos, with 43.
Many children has drowned and died in the sea. Many families.
Okay. And Hassan II signed the agreement. Okay, at that time, the Jews didn't even need a passport to go to Israel. No, they went to the office of Jewish agency in Meknes, in Fez. And I remember this period, you know, and the employee would say, okay, to the man, okay, what's your name? Ta-ta-ta, your wife. Okay, how many children? 7. Okay, name, ta-ta-ta-ta-ta, age, ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. This is a paper. With this paper, you go to the harbor of Casablanca, and it's okay, it's all right. I mean, you know that at that time, we didn't even have a national identity card, beginning in the 60s. Just to tell you that the Jews went like, you know, it was free. Everybody want it was like in 2 or 3 years, they were maybe 50,000 or 80,000 who left. And the king received money for that, effectively.
You said earlier, Mr. Jacob, you said earlier that Jews were not really in danger in Morocco.
No. I mean, we could have lived.
There was no.
there was no problem. Abraham Serfati. Abraham Serfati was the big opponent to the king. He was a Jew. He spent maybe 15 years in jail or 20 years.
I think 17, I think.
Okay. And he wrote, I met him twice in the prison in Morocco, in 81. And he wrote this. The Zionist and the Moroccan nationalist had the same interest to send the Jews away. Who are the Moroccan nationalists? The people of the Istiklal Party. Istiklal Party
الحركة الوطنية.
he was a party very traditional, and he didn't like Jews. Why? Because the Jews were active in the same activity, had the same activities as them. They work in the how do you say, the trade, like high public function, and this party was eager to send the Jews away, and because they didn't want to have competitors in the country.
And that's why the palace started to creating parties each year, each 2 years.
And this party was the big party who fought for the independence. I mean, he was the only party during the independence, and he tried. I mean, like for instance, in his newspaper, like L'Alam et l'Opinion, he launched campaigns. Okay, I give you an example. My father never wanted to go to Israel. For him, to go to Israel was a devil country. Okay, the Zionist, like I told you. And in '67 there was the war, and my father had a shop in Meknes. 99% of his customers were Muslims, and he had a very, very good relations with them. I mean, I have no time to explain, but he was respected, But in '67, this party, l'Istiklal, sent a guy of the party, in front of the shop of my father, and told the Muslims, do not buy by the Jew. Okay, and the Moroccans were afraid, it was hard for them to not to obey, because they could have been pointed out as a Zionist. So my father told me after that, because I was not in Meknes, he said I had no more customers. So I sold the shop, I sold the house. Where to go? He didn't speak French. He had no job. He had no profession. And the Zionists were there. Jewish agency. You want to go to Israel? We take everything in charge. We send you. So he said, okay, I'll go to Israel. Just to tell you the atmosphere of, for instance, in '67, this party had 2 newspapers. I remember I was there.
And this happened after the declaration of the Israeli state, not before.
No, in '67, after the war of '67.
Yes, that's what I meant. The anti-Semitism in Morocco started with the confusion between Israeli that occupy and Jewish.
Okay, but the Istiklal party had an interest to make the confusion. This party is its members are from Fez, are Fassi, you know, from
مدينة
Fez.
فاس.
People from Fez.
Fast.
And many of these people were Jews in the 18th century, were obliged to convert to Islam. And even, you know, I did an experience in Marrakesh, you know. I was with a friend, he is a Fassi, and we entered the shop of a Marrakchi. You know, there is a big difference of a Fassi and the Marrakchi. The Fassi is he has a white skin. He is very polite. He's civilized. You know, like and the Marrakchi are, you know, Arabi, like very harsh, very rude. And we put the subject of the Fassis with the Marrakchi, you know, and the Marrakchi said, "Oh, this bastard of Jews." You know, just even two centuries after, they are looked as, you know, like in the subconscious, you know, and probably many Fassis have a kind of rejection of their past, you know, unconsciously, you know, they don't like the Jews, you know. And the founder of the Halal Fassi was a very, like today we would say, a Muslim brother, you know, like he was not at that time, but
على الفاسي مؤسس حزب الاستقلال رئيس ما.
Okay, that's you know, and okay, the Mossad created a kind of panic among Moroccan Jews. You know, I was 4 years, I was in a Zionist organization, you know that, okay? So
Yes.
I know, you know, they try to implement a panic, even with false news, and, you know, like, so, and many Jews, you know, from 48 to 61, maybe they took 10,000, 20,000 Jews. I mean, not very, not too many.
Really,
But
yes.
61, there was the sinking of the boat, and there was a rush. And I can tell you one thing: half of the Jews of Morocco didn't want to go to Israel. Didn't want to go to Israel. What happened in the 70s? They went to France, they went to Canada, they went to Spain. Half of them. Only the poor went to Israel.
The poor people went to Israel.
People who were not educated and everything, and
because
so
they were granted jobs and
but people,
Yes,
a
exactly.
house.
But in the 70s, okay, the Jews, they understood that they had no future in this country. Even there was no anti-Semitism. The Jews were respected. But for instance, if a Jew worked in a bank, he knew that, okay, it's temporary. Even if he's Moroccan, he wouldn't get an evolution because it's impossible. So he knew.
The Zionists and Israel did bad to the Jews people in the Arab countries.
No,
Because of them.
No. This is an inside problem. Look,
okay.
this is an inside problem. For instance, Moroccans, especially people of Istiklal, if they meet a Jew working in a bank or an administration, they would do everything to push him out, because they can't accept the fact that a Jew would work normally like another citizen. It's just it's in their I don't know, mentality. I mean,
It's even religious.
It's a very tribal Morocco. Morocco has a very tribal conduct, and these Fassi do the same thing with the Berbers, with the Amazigh. Not only Jews, they have a spirit of a caste, a spirit of a caste. You know, they would never marry. They always 99% they would marry. Because the Fassis in Morocco are known, you know, they have names, special family names. They have a kind of, you know, like physical and so on. And they, I remember when I was in a university, they say, "Oh, if you are a Fassi, you won't have a problem to get a job, a good job in this and that. But if you are a Jew or a Berber, you will be discriminated." So it's a tribal mentality, you know.
Just to add something,
so it's not especially for Jews.
Not only for Jews, but
Al-Fassi believed in a state, in an Arab Muslim state. Everyone that who is not Arab, soit Jewish or Berber, or not Muslim, they should be converted to Islam, and they should talk Arabic, not Hebrew or Amazigh.
Yeah,
that's ideology. That's ideology. It's a mixed between Pan-Arabism, Arabic nationalism, and Islamism. It's a mixed.
Is this problem? Is it still till today, or it's just in the 60s or the 70s?
No, it has it. Well, you know, like no, right now they try to. There are a lot of. There is a big policy to make the Berber the language like almost official and everything, but
things are different today from the 60s.
A little bit. Officially, there is a difference.
But let me just say,
I would like to ask
while we're talking about oppression, in Marrakesh in 2011 or 12, the late month of 2011 or the first month of 2012, I was trying to buy a ticket to see a football match. My mom called me on my phone, and we were talking Amazigh, not Arabic. As soon as I finished the call, some of the supporters that were trying to buy also tickets for the match started to kick me, to slap me with their hands, their feet, and they kicked me out of the queue, la queue, and they kicked me only because I was talking my mother language with my mom. So the Moroccan Constitution in 2011 recognized Amazigh culture as a part of the national identity, but it's still discriminated against. That's what
even though the law says okay. The last question, I want to thank you before the last question, but what kind of message would you like to say to the Arab people, the Palestinian and the Moroccan people, and the UAE, the Bahrainian, maybe more countries, I don't know, in the few weeks? What do you want to say to them as a message from Jacob Cohen, as a Jew, Moroccan, and someone who's interested and just know a little bit more than they know about the Zionist?
Okay. Become scientist. I mean, I invite you to have a scientific mentality. Scientific. Okay? Not spontaneous. Study Zionism. Study Hebrew. I mean, make a lot of thousands of students. of
التراث.
Hebrew, to understand, to read the papers, to read the books, to read the speeches. The Israelis do that. You know, I knew one guy in Israel. He was a Jew from Morocco, and he was a specialist of all the Arab dialect of the Middle East, and he used to prepare the spice. Okay, he knew. I mean, he could. Okay, like when they sent Eli Cohen to Syria, I mean, it was 100%. I mean, that's what the Arabs lack. I mean, it's the preparation. Okay, we have to understand one thing. The Zionists they have, I mean, discussed, I mean, have le mépris, le mépris, comment on dit le mépris, Youssef? Bon, they don't like.
Appreciate. They don't
Okay,
appreciate.
they hate. They don't like. I mean, if you live with them, I know them. You know, I know them very intimately. Okay, so not the Jews everywhere in the world, the Zionists. I mean, Jews who live in Israel. I mean, they are different. And I invite the Arabs to come to know very well this society, this mentality, so they could find the ways to come to fight them. For instance, I am certain, and I say it for 10 years, 15 years, Palestinians have a weapon, fantastic weapon to put Zionists down. Fantastic weapon. But they have no guts. They are stupid. They are weak. They are miserable. They just to say, look, we don't want Palestinian Authority. Take all, make, occupy us, and Israel will become again an occupying state, and it will be the end of the Zionists. And I don't understand why they don't understand something so simple. So I mean, it's just, it makes me crazy. I think I don't know. It's just, you know, when I see Mahmoud Abbas playing as president, I mean, he went to Egypt last week to talk. He's a puppet. I mean,
exactly. He doesn't present any Palestinian.
When are they going to wake up and be, you know, like, that's the problem. So, you know, they think effectively Israel is a big power, but as we say in French, is un colosse au pied d'argile. Youssef, un colosse au pied d'argile.
Pied d'argile بأرجلطينية. كولوس
c'est quelqu'un de grand, un géant.
عملاق بأرجلطينية. As we say, نمور من ورق. Des tigres en papier.
Okay, he is powerful, yes, but he is based on, you know, the big problem of Israel.
How can the Palestinians defeat the Israeli? How they can defeat them?
I told you, just to make the Israelis an occupying force, an occupying country. You know, the genius of Rabin was to say to make believe a fiction. It's a fiction that the Palestinians are going to a state. It's a fiction. It has lasted for 27 years. And the Palestinians have ministers, have a parliament, have security force, have everything of a state, but nothing of a sovereign state sovereignty. And it can last over 20 years. I mean, they would never get a state. I mean, a real independent state with control on its borders, and never. I mean, how could they? I don't know. I don't know why they don't understand. Israel would be in panic. I say in panic if the Palestinians tell them, look, we don't want to take care of our people. You are the occupying force. Take care. We go away. The government go away. The parliament go away. Take care. I mean, in the 6 months, half of the world would break diplomatic relations. Europe would break commercial relations. I mean, it's I don't know, a pupil.
It's interesting money.
High school pupil can understand this. How could how could they? Like, it makes me just crazy. I don't understand.
Okay, let's listen to Yusuf. What's your final message to the Moroccan people? I want you to say
If you would excuse me, I just want to say
for the Moroccan people. Are you with me?
Yes,
do you hear me, Yusuf?
Yes, now I hear you. Before there was a problem with the connection. I just want to finish my story about the normalization between Moroccan regime and the Israeli state. Yes, I hear you. If you would let me,
you can continue.
I would just like to finish my story about the normalization between the Moroccan regime and the Israeli state. As I said, in the early 60s, more than 150,000 Moroccan Jews were sold. The price is estimated at $275 per each individual Jew, and with a commission of $500,000. And the dollar in the 60s is a big number. Is an important currency. It's not like today. It is it worth right now millions and millions of dollars. So they were sold, and there was the Second World War just ended. There was two poles: the Eastern Pole, or the Eastern Camp, and the Western Camp. As Mr. Jacob said, Hassan II hated the nationalist Arabic regimes, especially Jamal Abdel Nasser and Muammar al-Gaddafi. So he made an alliance with the Western, with Europe, and especially with the United States to protect the monarchy against all spectrums of politicians who want to establish a Moroccan republic. As with the left, especially Mahdi Ben Barka, and the army, since there were two military coups in Morocco, one in 1971 and the second 1 year after. So the United States helped Hassan II to stay in power by money, loans, and military aid and military traineeship. Since then, Morocco started to normalize with the state of Israel. And the state of Israel, by or through the services provided by Mossad to kill and arrest Moroccan opposition, especially Mahdi ibn Barka, who was killed in France in 1965. And there is a book about that written by the Mahdi ibn Barka lawyer. He's called Maurice Butin. He never excluded the probability that the Mossad organized the details of the arrestation of Mahdi ibn Barka in 1965. So, and as I said, the United States and Israel hoped that they will keep safe all the monarchies, starting from Morocco and Saudi Arabia and South Yemen and all the Gulf countries, and in Egypt also, but that failed with Jamal Abdel Nasser military coup. And also Morocco needed so much United States and Israel, especially United States, because United States controlled the International Monetary Fund, and Morocco was broke, financially broke, and the United States controls, it has the veto over the IMF, International Monetary Fund. So we can say that the relationship between Hassan II and the United States led normally to a normalization with Israel, and that has become public starting 1986, when Hassan II received Shimon Peres, the Prime Minister of Israel, in Ifran in Morocco, and it was public. There was media and press and photos and everything. But the turning point was the death of Hassan II and the rise of Muhammad VI. Starting 2000, it has been very public, the relationships between the Moroccan regime and Israel. Many the trade affairs increased, the military and economic agreements has been established, especially in the intelligence sector. Last year, 12 men of Moroccan opposition were told by WhatsApp company, meaning Facebook company, that they were spied on. They were journalists and activists spied on by a software called Pegasus that was sold to the Moroccan government by NSO. Here, I would like to stop and say that normalization will only lead on the political level to make strong the Arab dictatorship. We can see that with Sisi. We can see that in Saudi Arabia with the rise of Mohammed bin Salman. Yes, and it only Israel has the green light to break all the rules, the international rules that concerns selling intelligence softwares. And here we should say that USA and Israel real enemy is international law. If they succeed in destroying and devaluating the international law, will go back to before the First World War, and it will be chaos, it will be wars, it will be occupation all over again, colonialism, massacres, genocide, and everything is possible. That's all what I have to say
Yes, of
about
course,
the
I
history.
agree. Yes. Do you have anything to say to the Moroccan people as a final sentence from you?
Well,
Be strong.
the Moroccan people.
Be strong.
No, I mean, okay, you know, no. The Moroccans have a lot of problems.
Mhm.
You know, there is a very difficult life for the majority of the population. You know, many people. For instance, just to say, the school is in a very bad situation. So people pay to send. I mean, even if they don't have they are not rich, they send their children to private schools to hope that they will get a good education. The health situation is very very low, and you know, for the people, Zionism and Israel, okay, even if their heart is near the Palestinians, but it's far away, and they have so many problems. I mean, the day life, and especially I said before that the COVID, I mean this pandemic situation, it has worse the situation of Moroccans, because they are blocked, they are confined, they are prevented from work, from going to the beach, from to travel. The Morocco obeys obeys the international oligarchy, who tells Morocco to obey, to make the vaccine very easy for the population. And so the situation right now for Moroccans is very, very bad. I mean, last year it was paradise for them. Now many of them are cannot travel, cannot work. They cannot go to school,
and tourism has taken a big hit. Tourism. Yes.
So the situation in the Middle East for them is something. I mean, right now is something
Not in the priority now, because they are thinking.
It's very secondary. I mean, they are in a mess economically, culturally. I mean, socially. It's terrible what they are going through.
Okay, I want to thank you, Mr. Jacob.
I want to add something
Yusuf,
about
you're welcome.
The terms and the conditions of the agreement that the king has made yesterday. One of the terms is a loan from the United States, $3 billion. It was yesterday, and some drones, some highly sophisticated drones, and United States will inaugurate an embassy in the Western Sahara as a sign. Consulia in the Western Sahara as a sign of the recognition of the United States of the sovereignty of Morocco. And all I want to say is that it will be Egypt all over again. The same scenario. There will be no benefit for the people. Only the oligarchy will benefit from it. Only the companies. Only the corrupt politicians. And there is no good for the people.
For the people. Okay, thank you, Yusuf. Thank you, Mr. Jacob. It was really a great time to be with you and to hear you again. I hope things will be better, even though I'm not very pessimistic. I'm not very positive. So I will say thank you again, and maybe we will meet again. I hope so. And we will say bye-bye. See you next time. Bye.
Thank you for your invitation.
Youssef, on peut se mettre en contact par les réseaux sociaux, non?
Oui, bien sûr. Marie-Han peut vous envoyer mon lien Facebook.
We'll continue our